Well, it is so good to see everybody here. It's been a while. And I love worshiping with all of you. And once again, his faithfulness. Well, he is faithful in every detail of our lives. Amen. And just to bless me with a song to scripture. And so today we're going into 1 Chronicles 29 to the story of just after when all the people were joyfully and with just willing hearts were just giving and giving all the materials and stuff for the temple to David. And then David starts just praising Yahweh in this part. And it's just a powerful little snippet that I pulled. I mean, the whole thing is great. But so just once you get the hang of it, just sing along. Abba, Father, I just thank you so much for today. And I just thank you for your spirit. I thank you for your Ruach. That even just right now, we could just breathe you in. We could just be empowered by you, be strengthened once again to continue to walk in your truth. Make us hungry to want to know you more. With everything that's inside of us, we want to worship you. We want to declare these truths from your ancient text. We choose to follow this ancient path. And thank you for guiding us along the way, being faithful and giving us those witnesses we need. And most of all, thank you for your perfect shalom as we keep our eyes on you and that we entrust our lives. We emunah. With certainty, we choose you to be the authority of our lives.
Blessed are you, O YHWH Elohim of Israel, our Father from everlasting and to everlasting. Blessed are you, O YHWH Elohim of Israel, our Father from everlasting and to everlasting. And now, Yahweh, we give thanks to you and praise your glorious name. And now, Yahweh, we give thanks to you and praise your glorious name. To you, O Yahweh, is the greatness and the power, the glory and the victory and might. For you are Yahweh of all things that are in heaven and on the earth, ruler over all dominions. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, our Father from everlasting and to everlasting are you. seas they are troubled, every nation and king. You are almighty with your hand to increase and establish all things. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, our Father from everlasting and to everlasting. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, our Father from everlasting and to everlasting. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, our Father from everlasting and to everlasting. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, our Father from everlasting and to everlasting. And now, Yahweh, we give thanks to you and praise your glorious name, Yahweh. And now, Yahweh, we give thanks to you and praise your glorious name, Yahweh. We love you, we exalt you. You are our faithful Father, our Abba, from everlasting. We bless your holy name. We bless your holy name. We declare your truth for now and yet to come. We trust you, we am you now. We have no fear. We just ask for continual shalom as we walk in your truth. You always give us those witnesses, and we thank you for that, Abba Father. We thank you so much. Even though the road might be lonely sometimes, we keep your eyes on you. We keep our eyes on you. We keep our eyes on you. Complete shalom. Let the peoples praise you. 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 That your way may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. Be glad and sing for joy, all nations. Shall judge and rule the people. Then the earth shall yield her increase. Our own Yah shall bless us. cause your face don't shine upon us. Being merciful, yeah. We thank you for your mercy. Let the peoples praise you. 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 From the rising of the sun, Yahweh's name shall be great. Even to the setting of the sun, Yahweh's name shall be great, shall be great. From the rising of the sun, Yahweh's name shall be great. Even to the setting of the sun, Yahweh's name shall be great. Incense shall be offered and pure offerings. Yahweh's name shall be great. Thus says Yahweh, Sebaot, Yahweh's name shall be great. After this manner, therefore I pray. After this manner, Yeshua prayed this too. I pray to you, oh yeah. After this manner, Abba Father, therefore I pray. After this manner. My Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, on earth as it is in heaven, in heaven. Give me my daily bread and forgive me of my sins as I forgive those who sinned against me, as I forgive those who sinned against me, against me. Help me through temptations powerful. From the evil one deliver me. For yours is the kingdom, to the setting of the sun. Yahweh's name shall be great. Incense shall be offered, and pure offerings. Yahweh's name shall be great. And thus says Yahweh, Sebaot, Yahweh's name shall be great. Glorious, glorious, glorious. We're singing glorious, glory, glorious, glorious, glorious. Hallelujah, glorious, glory, glorious. Let his name be blessed forever. His name shall endure before the sun. All the tribes of the earth shall be blessed in him. Let his name be blessed forever. His name shall endure before the sun. All the nations shall call him blessed. Blessed is Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. Glorious, glorious. We're singing glorious, glory, glorious, glorious, glorious. We're singing glorious, glory, glorious. Who alone does wonders, and blessed is his glorious name forever, even forever and ever. Who alone does wonders, and blessed is his glorious name forever, even forever, and blessed is your name, Yah. 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 All the earth shall be filled with his glory. All the earth shall be filled with his glory. All the earth shall be filled with his glory. So be it, so be it. All the earth shall be filled with his glory. All the earth shall be filled with his glory. All the earth shall be filled with his glory. Blessed is your name, Yah. 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 So be it, so be it. Blessed is your name, Yah.
love you so much. Though the fig tree bears no fruit, on the vines there's no produce, no olives, no food in the field at all, no sheep or oxen in pasture and stall, yet I will exalt in Yahweh. Yet I will exalt in Yahweh. Yet I will. Though the fig tree bears no fruit, on the vines there's no produce, no olives, no food in the field at all, no sheep or oxen in pasture and stall, yet I will exalt in Yahweh. Yet I will exalt in Yahweh. Yet I will. I will joy in the authority of your salvation. Yahweh Elohim is our strength. Yahweh, I will joy in the authority of your salvation. Yahweh Elohim is my strength. Though the fig tree bears no fruit, on the vines there's no produce, no olives, no food in the field at all, no sheep or oxen in pasture and stall, yet I will exalt in Yahweh. Yet I will exalt in Yahweh. Yet I will. I will joy in the authority of your salvation. Yahweh Elohim is my strength. Will joy in the authority of your salvation. Yahweh Elohim is my strength. He will perfectly strengthen me, strengthen my feet. Upon high places he mounts me, he makes me to walk on high hills. That I may conquer by his song, we worship you. I may conquer by worshiping you. I may conquer by his song, Yahweh. Yahweh, we worship you. He will perfectly strengthen me, strengthen my feet. Upon high places he mounts me, he makes me to walk on high hills. Just keep declaring that in your heart. That I may conquer by his song, we worship you. I may conquer by his song. I may conquer by his song. We worship you. We worship you. We place you above all, above every circumstance around us. But I may conquer by his song. I may conquer by his song. There is power in his name. I may conquer by his song. Yahweh, Yahweh, you're our authority. this your daily prayer. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you're my authority. You're my Savior. I have waited on thee all the day. Show me your ways. Oh, Yahweh, teach me your paths. Oh, Yahweh, remember your compassions and your mercies from everlasting. Lead me. Oh, Yahweh, teach me your paths. Oh, Yahweh, remember your compassions and your mercies from everlasting. Lead me. This is a safe place to leave our lives. It's just to lay it down before Him. The Creator, the lover of our soul. Everything, all that we have, all that we are, it's to you. To you, I have lifted up my soul. To you, I have lifted up my soul. Oh, Yahweh, to you, I have lifted up my soul. To you, I have lifted up my soul. To you, I have lifted up my soul. Oh, Yahweh, to you, I have lifted up my soul. Holy Yahweh Almighty, Yahweh is my strength. Kadosh, Kadosh, you are so worthy. Lead me, Abba Father, in your ancient truth. Keep me on your path in your truth. We love you, we adore you. With all, we bow down before you. Thing to meditate on is just the truth of Yah's words.
stand the test of time, tried, tested, and true. The words of Yahweh are pure words, the silver tried in fire, proved in a furnace of the earth. The words of Yahweh are pure words, as silver tried in fire, purified 7 times. You, Yahweh, shall keep us and preserve us. You, Yahweh, shall keep us and preserve us from this generation and forever. From this generation and forever. But the just shall live by faith. But the just shall live by Emunah. But the just shall live by Emunah in Yahweh. But the just shall live by faith. But the just shall live by Emunah. But the just shall live by Emunah in Yahweh. Your statutes, your ordinances, your precepts, your judgments, your covenants are true. You never change. You keep your word. We hold on to that. We love you. We love your words, tried, tested, and true. Thank you, Abba Father. Thank you. Thank you. Continue to just bless our time together as we dig into your word more. In your name, Yahuwah, through Yahusha. Amen.
Thank you, Davene, and thank you for all the effort you put into every song and leading us in worship as we begin our Bible study. And it's wonderful to see everyone here tonight. And I hope we all had a wonderful day, whether it was challenging or otherwise. And now we can put those circumstances aside and dive into the words that comes out of chapter 18 of Genesis. So tonight we are dealing with chapter 18, and it's split into 2 parts. So we're dealing with part 1 this week, and I titled it In the Heat of the Day. And And from our news story, we extract what I call Please Wash My Feet.
Okay, it is definitely way past the Easter season, but at the same time, it is a few months off from the next observance. The head of the Catholic Communion did a bit of foot washing as part of the rite of their observance. This title is Pope to Perform Holy Thursday Foot Washing Rite at Rome Prison. Rome. Pope Francis will wash the feet of 12 inmates at Rome's Central Prison during a Holy Week ritual meant to show his willingness to serve others. The Vatican said Tuesday that Francis will meet March 29th with inmates at the Regina Coeli prison, including those in the special protected wing where sexual predators are housed.
The prison is located near the Vatican. The prison is located near the Vatican and is a former Carmelite convent. Francis is the fourth pope to visit Regina Coeli prison after John 23 in 1958, Paul V in 1964, and John Paul II in 2000.
Francis has made the Holy Thursday ritual a hallmark of his papacy, part of his insistence that the Catholic Church must go to the margins of society to serve. This rite stems from the Messiah washing the feet of his disciples before he was sentenced to death by the governing authorities. It's now a part of some religious services across the spectrum of faith, with the Catholic communion making it their own. This is not a command of the Messiah to his disciples, but an act of humility pertaining to service and leading by example. His choice to wash their feet showed even the Son of Elohim is not afraid to serve others, even to do something that may seem demeaning.
And you'll see how feet washing plays a part into this Bible study. So now we are in Genesis chapter 18, and we begin at verse 1. Okay, so, and God appeared to him by the oak of Mamre, as he sat by the door of his tent at noon. And in the Masoretic it says, in the heat of the day. Chapter 18 opens with Abraham having a relaxing moment sitting at the entrance of his tent on a very hot day. He is doing what many people in hot places do at the high point of the day, relax under a tree or a shady place. Then the Lord, L-O-R-D, all caps, or capital L-O-R-D, lowercase, or God, appeared to him. The commonly held view is the theophany explanation.
Can we just do a quick meaning of the word theophany, please?
It's an appearance where there are certain situations where where they make an assumption that the divine is in the form of a human body, so they typically tend to call it a theophany.
Some have suggested that all three of these men were angelic beings who appeared to Abraham in the form of men. However, Genesis 18:1 says that it was the Lord Yahweh, or Yahuwah, who appeared to Abraham. It is the Lord who speaks in verses 13, 20, 26, and 33, or Yahuwah. Abraham stands before Yahuwah in verse 22. So one of these three men must have been God Almighty, taking on the appearance of a man. We call such an appearance a theophany when Jesus appears in his pre-incarnate body in the Old Testament. We call it a Christophany, and this is a commonly held view, correct?
A commonly held view. And this is where I got that citation from, so you'll see exactly how people view these manifestations when they occur. Because of the literary device used, Lord, all uppercase, or Lord with the first word capitalized, the L, or God, it is at times difficult to distinguish the who and the where, and when YHWH Elohim or one of his messengers enter the narrative. From the Hebrew, it is YHWH, and I took an excerpt of the Hebrew there and highlighted his name, and in the Septuagint it just says God. Is the device used? And in the Masoretic they use Lord with the uppercase L and all the other words lowercase. Yeah, different translators would use a different device. Yahweh Elohim appearing is not an odd or an unusual situation. So, and the Lord appeared.
When reading passages narrating the appearance of Yahuwah, seemingly accompanied with others in bodily forms, the typical assumption is the theophany or Christophany explanation, as elaborated in study.
Oops, I forgot to put in the study. We did that in before.
Yahuwah does not change his nature or lower his authority in the form of his creation. In likewise manner to Abraham, Yahuwah Elohim appeared to King Solomon before and after he dedicated the temple. Right. So before temple dedication.
And I just extracted the Hebrew here and underlined the specific word that means to appear.
Okay. 1 Kings 3:5-6.
Yep, from the Brenton, and I also put the Masoretic translation there as well.
And Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And Yahweh said to Solomon, ask some petition for thyself. And Solomon said, you have dealt very mercifully with your servant David my father, according as he walked before you in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with you. And you have kept for him this great mercy to set his son upon his throne, as it is this day.
And it's just to show that key word, he appeared. Yahuwah appeared. And after the temple dedication as well, he appeared to King Solomon a second time.
1 Kings 9, 1-3. And it came to pass when Solomon had finished building the house of Yahweh and the king's house and all the work of Solomon, whatever he wished to perform, that Yahweh appeared to Solomon a second time as he appeared in Gibeon. And Yahweh said to him, I have heard the voice of your prayer and your supplication which you made before me. I have done for you according to all your prayer. I have hallowed this house which you have built to put my name there forever, and my eyes and my heart shall be there always.
Now, in each instance of this appearance, it's just to show it's nothing that's unfamiliar. It's something that typically occurs, but we have to look and see whether or not it's the popularly held view or if it's some other situation that is taking place here.
But when we say properly held view, you're meaning?
That he appeared in bodily form.
Okay.
Okay. The appearance of Yahuwah in every instance reference the same word to see, have vision, which is ra'ah, which is the specific word used to mean appear, is used to announce the event. Abram in his tent at the moment of the day when work cannot be accomplished, Yahweh Elohim appeared to him. The King of Glory takes his place first before the others arrive to be part of a council with Abraham. Now, in like manner, Yahweh Elohim appeared to Abraham and Solomon. In like manner, Yahweh Elohim appearing to Abraham and Solomon, visions and dreams are also other ways he utilizes to connect with his creation. With his chosen. Are visions and dreams one and the same? Referencing a few passages of scripture, this can be determined, and I would need some help here reading some of these passages. So,
who's got Genesis 28, 10 to 12? Why don't you pull them all up for us, Daniel, and then people can look.
Someone can look up Genesis 37, 4-6. We'll try our best. And then
And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran, and he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set, and he took of the stories of that place and put them for his pillows, and lay down in the place to sleep. And he dreamed, and he held a ladder up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of Elohim ascending and descending on it.
Right, so Jacob had a dream. So that's one way he appears to us. 37, 4-6.
Okay, I got it. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they began to hate him, and reached the point where they couldn't even talk with him in a civil manner. Joseph had a dream which he told his brothers, and that made them hate him all the more.
And when we get to the specific passages soon, we would elaborate on each respective one a little bit more. So we still have some more reading, so whoever found Daniel chapter 1 verse 1 can begin reading. And then somebody else could look for Daniel chapter 7 verse 1 as well.
Levi. Thanks.
Because what I'm trying to do here is to show that there's a distinction between appearances, dreams, and visions. Yeah. And then we have Daniel chapter 10.
Esther, if you can do Daniel chapter 10.
Okay, so who's doing Daniel chapter 1 verse 1?
Oh, right. Got it? You don't got it yet? You got
Okay.
it? Okay.
In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, came to Jerusalem and laid siege to it.
That's Daniel 1?
Daniel 1.
No, I think I mistake that one.
That's not right. That's maybe Daniel 3.
No, try Daniel 2:1.
In the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar became so troubled by a series of dreams he had that he couldn't sleep.
Right, so my mistake there, that was Daniel chapter 2 verse 1, and then anybody has Daniel chapter 7 verse 1.
Raise your hand if you do. Sarah, you got it?
And in the meantime, someone could find Daniel chapter 10.
In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babel, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sons of the matters. The
Okay,
sum of the matters.
Okay, so here Daniel had dreams and vision. So there's a distinction between the two here. And then Daniel chapter 10, verse 4, and then verse 7.
You got it?
And in the 12th day, in the first month, it was by the side of the great river, which is the, Hiddekel, I don't know. Hiddekel. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, certain man, girded. I don't know what that word is. Yeah. Where am I? Oh, with the gold of Ephaz. His body also was like the Herel, and his face and as the appearance of a lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms.
You could stop there at 4 and jump to verse 7 for me. So I just wanted to capture there that where Daniel was at the specific time the event happened.
Oh, okay.
No, verse 7.
And I, Daniel, alone saw a vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great guacking fell upon them. So they fled and hid themselves.
Right, so it's just to show the state Daniel was in at that specific time. He saw a vision, and everybody else knew something happened, so they fled in fear. But Daniel saw the vision. So going on to Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 1. Somebody could find that quickly. So Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 1, and I will try to find Joel chapter 2:28.
Let me know who's got it first.
Okay, I have Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 1. So if somebody could find Joel chapter 2:28, that would be great. Okay, now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Elohim. So here Ezekiel was by a specific location, and he saw visions of Elohim. And now the last one is Joel chapter 2 verse 28.
And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions.
Okay, so what I wanted to do here is to show that contrast between a dream, a vision, and an appearance. So each one is something unique and distinct from the other, and it's to show that whenever you see these situations occurring, treat it as such. So there is a distinction between a dream and a vision. A dream occurs when one is asleep, while a vision is an event that occurs in an awakened state. And you see from those examples, like with Daniel and with Ezekiel, they were in an awakened state. By visions and dreams, YHWH Elohim makes known his plans to those he chooses. So this is how he tends to communicate to some of us through visions and dreams, so that we can then transmit it on to those who needs to know this information. And now, now we're going to have and some excerpts from Dr. Michael Heiser from his book, The Unseen Realm, where Dr. Heiser gives the majority opinion on this explanation. So he's going with the sort of the theophany view.
Theophany. Just needing a flashlight. It's a little too dark here. Okay, thank you. Okay, so he's referencing Genesis 18:1-5, and I'm just going to give some context before I start reading. He's done the story of comparing the story of Samuel and when Yahweh came to him at that as well as a comparison. So that's something you can go and look at yourself. And that is 1 Samuel 3:19-21. So that one of these three men is Yahweh is evident from the first verse. That the appearance of Yahweh and his two companions is physical was telegraphed by the request to wash their feet and partake in a meal, which they subsequently do. The narrator and the reader, of course, know that one of the men is Yahweh, but does Abraham? That he does is made clear from the conversation he has with the embodied Yahweh. After their meal, the other two men, who we discover are angels in Genesis 19, leave to go to Sodom. Once Abraham discerns that the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is imminent, he objects out of concern for his nephew Lot, and we'll get more into that next when we get into chapter 19. How did Abraham know, just skipping down a little bit, and that the figure before whom he stood was Yahweh? The chronology of his encounters in Genesis would tell us that he had heard Yahweh's voice before. This oral recognition is present in other passages involving Abraham that we'll see in a moment. But I also think Abraham visually recognized his visitor from those previous encounters. And another example that we can go and look at as well is Jeremiah chapter 1. And you can look at that on your own time as well. And then there's one other little, kind of a neat little spot here about just talking about the patterns of an encounter with the Most High. The pattern under the patriarchs on page 235, the pattern of an encounter with God or with divine council members as validation of one's prophetic status gets even clearer with the patriarchs. Since we've covered this ground in previous chapters, though not with an eye to understanding the pattern behind these events, we'll take an abbreviated tour here. The reader will surely recall that Yahweh appeared to Abraham on several occasions. So you got Genesis 12, Genesis 15, cross-reference in the book of Acts, chapter 7. There's a detail in these encounters that I've not mentioned before. In Genesis 12, 6-7, we're told that Yahweh appeared to Abraham at the Oak of Moreh, which was near Shechem. Yahweh's subsequent visitation with Abraham just before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah occurred at a place called the Oaks of Mamre in Genesis 18:1. And this is just kind of cool. The Oak of Moreh and the Oaks of Mamre are each what scholars call a terebinth, a sacred tree that got its sacred reputation because it marked a spot where divine beings appeared. In fact, Oak of Moreh literally means Oak of the Teacher. The point behind the name would be that some divine figure teaches people or dispenses information at this location, what we can commonly think of as an oracle, because they were thought to be holy ground, places where God was present. Such places were considered good places to bury loved ones. The dispensing of divine knowledge and divine decrees is, of course, something the biblical writers associated with the divine council. And you can cross-reference Job 15, 7 and 8, 1 Kings 22, 13-23. And this connection will be especially transparent when we get to the classical prophets. So, of course, I'm taking an excerpt here. While Abraham was still a pagan, God had chosen him to be the father of Yahweh's new earthly inheritance after the debacle at Babel, where the nations were given over to lesser Elohim. And that's Deuteronomy 32, 8-9. Abraham became the conduit for God's truth to the disinherited nations. Abraham's son, Isaac, enjoyed the same status, and Yahweh appeared to him also when confirming the covenant. And that's coming up in Genesis 26. Jacob had a number of direct divine encounters, Genesis 28, 31, and 32. And he inherited the covenantal prophetic status of his father and grandfather. So the pattern that emerges from the patriarchal sagas is that when God chooses someone to represent him, that person must first meet with God. By necessity, that meeting is with the visible Yahweh, who can be discerned by human senses. In many cases, the divine job interview occurs in a place that is described as God's home or headquarters, the place where the divine council meets. Just thought a little interesting little thing there.
Okay, so that's his commentary on the majority opinion, how he slants it.
That's specifically the theophany section, but there was another section about the trees that was interesting too.
Right, so we are in verse 2 to 5. And he raised his eyes, and I'm reading from the Masoretic translation because we'll do a comparison. And he raised his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, from the Masoretic perspective, my Lord. And if you look at the Hebrew, I have the word Adonai highlighted in bold red. If now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort your hearts. After that you shall pass on, seeing that you are come to your servant. And they said, so do as thou hast said. Now, if you look at the Masoretic in verse 3, it does not use my Lord, it just uses simply Lord. And we'll talk about that in a little. So I call this section and. Verse 2 begins with the conjunction and, which lets the reader know that it's in addition to what had previously happened with, whether it's Lord or God, appearing to him. It connects the first event with what happens next with the 3 men who stood next to Abraham. He greets them with the literary homage title, Lord, which can confuse readers in English to make a specific assumption. The Hebrew word used in verse 3 is Adonai, and that's strong number 0113, which usually translates my Lord because of the yod, which is at the end of the word, which gives personal possession. This is the case with the Masoretic text and not Yod He Vav, which someone would read and expect, as in verse 1, which is the proper name of Yah, where the proper name of Yah is used. How the literary device is used by the translator in your preferred version of the Bible helps with distinguishing who is who. And in the case here with this little image that I've included, the translation of the Net Bible use all uppercase Lord, whereas if we were to go back to the Septuagint, they use Lord, and as well, let's go back to verse 1. Oops.
But the Septuagint doesn't usually distinguish those two either way, so you really have to go into the context
to see what is taking
verses,
place.
So you can't use that as for that one.
Right, and we continue it, and he entreats the 3 men, not the Trinity, to have a meal. This is termed the hospitality of Abraham.
So the history of Rublev's icon. St. Andrei Rublev painted the hospitality of Abraham in 1411 for the abbot of the Trinity Monastery in Russia. Rublev portrayed what has become the quintessential icon of the Holy Trinity by depicting 3 mysterious strangers who visited Abraham in Genesis 18:1-15. Many in Rublev's culture were confused by the doctrine of the Trinity, and others rejected it altogether. Rublev's Trinity showed them a lovely understanding of God as 3 in 1 that is beyond try to figure out. Almost 600 years later, Rublev's icon continues to draw people into the mysterious and wonderful presence of the Trinity. Abraham's 3 visitors. In the Genesis account, the Lord visits Abraham in the form of 3 men who are apparently angels representing God. Abraham bows low to the ground before his 3 visitors, and they speak to Abraham in union and are alternatively referred to by the Genesis writer as they or the Lord. Abraham offers them the hospitality of foot washing, rest under a shade tree, and a meal, and they offered him the announcement that God was going to give he and his wife Sarah a son, though Sarah was far past the age of childbearing.
So we see here the contrast of the 2 opinions. Some believe it is, some believe it's not. So it's just to show that it's not a settled opinion. people are back and forth on whether it was or it wasn't. But in Hebrews chapter 13 verse 2, be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angel unawares. So that's something to always keep in mind, is to always be hospitable.
Abraham brings water for the men to wash their feet. Why wash your feet? Is this some strange custom we're not aware of? For a moment, let us focus on ritualistic washing. The Anointed One, or the Prophet, challenged the religious leaders on washing, and I just want to clarify the title of the Prophet. You can see it in the book of John, in the first few chapters, and context is being asked if he's the prophet. That was a known title, someone they were looking for, from Deuteronomy chapter 18.
Yep.
I don't want to assume people know that.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, Mark chapter 7, 1-9. Then came together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes, which came from Jerusalem. And then they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, with unwashed hands, and found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Jews except they wash their hands often, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders, keyword, holding the tradition of the elders. And when they came from the market, they eat not. And many other things there be, which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots, basin vessels, and of tables. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, Why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said to them,
Well has Isaiah prophesied of you, hypocrites, as it is written, This people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold traditions of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things you do. And he said unto them, Full well you reject the commandment of God, instead that you may keep your own tradition.
And he's quoting from Isaiah chapter 29, verse 13.
Which I just happened to be reading this morning. That's cool. And Yahweh has said, This people draw near to me with their mouth, and they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching the commandments and doctrines of men.
So a lot of the things the Pharisees were putting forth as truth and righteousness was actually their own imaginations that they came up with because of other occurrences that happened. And in this case is with the washing of the feet.
And Yeshua is referencing the commandment of God, and he's saying that in plural, like for the Torah and the law, right? Correct?
Yes. So the Anointed One, or the Prophet, on feet washing. So this is from John chapter 13, 1-5.
Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God, he riseth from supper, and laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself. After that he poured water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded.
And this is where that tradition comes for Easter, where they do the washing of the feet. This is exactly where they take it from. Yeshua, Jesus, did something that was unexpected and is typically done before a meal. He was not performing a ritual, but took this action for one specific reason. So if you was to read John chapter 13, 12-15.
So after he had washed their feet, and had taken his garments, and was set down again, he said unto them, Know you what I have done to you? You call me Master and Lord, and you say, Well, for so I am. Now that's not Lord Yahweh, correct?
It could be Adonai.
Adonai. And you say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you.
Right, so it's just to set an example why he did it. It wasn't to establish anything new. but to show humility before those who we are going to be serving. Around the Easter observance, the Catholic Communion and other Christian organizations, not all of them, congregations, perform this as a rite in keeping with the example of the Messiah. It was no accident that the head of the Catholic faith chose 12 men from a local prison to prostrate himself in like manner. Was it in humility, or to act in his position as vicar of Christ, or I am the Christ? Typically what that word vicar of Christ means. Additionally, he may have washed the feet of his disciples to symbolically prepare them for the journey to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So that's just my take on that as well.
In one of his many encounters with the religious leaders, Yeshua or Jesus used the situation as a teaching moment to bring about a point.
So this is in Luke chapter 7, verse 36 to 47.
And one of the Pharisees desired him that he would eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house and sat down to meat. And behold, a woman in the city which was a sinner, when she knew that Yeshua sat at meat in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment, and stood at his feet behind him weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and did wipe them with the hairs of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. Now when the Pharisee which had bidden him saw it, he spoke within himself, saying, This man, if he were a prophet, would have known what manner of woman this is that touched him, for she is a sinner. And Yeshua answering said unto him, Simon, I have somewhat to say to you. And he said, Master, say on. There was a certain creditor which had 2 debtors. The one owed 500 pence, and the other 50. And when they had nothing to pay, he frankly forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, which of them will love him most? Simon answered and said, I suppose he to whom he forgave most. And he said unto him, You have rightly judged. And he turned to the woman and said unto Simon, See thou this woman? I entered into your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with tears, and wiped them with the hairs of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman, since the time I came in, has not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil you did not anoint, but this woman has anointed my feet with ointment. Wherefore I say unto you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. For she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. And he said unto her, Your sins are forgiven.
Continue.
I love that.
Continue.
And they that sat at meat with him began to say within themselves, Who is this that forgives sins also? And he said to the woman, Your faith, or your emunah, has saved you. Go in peace.
Instead of Simon the Pharisee focus on being the hospitable host, as his guests entered his home, he decided to be the thing with the 2 long ears, which is called an ass, to put man-made righteousness on display. The woman, knowing who was before her, seized an opportunity. While the host was concerned...
I think that's supposed to be seized.
Okay.
Seized.
Yeah.
Just for those listening in and watching.
While the host was concerned about being full of himself, the issue at hand was lost to everyone as they reasoned about who has the authority to forgive sins, rather than the act performed by the woman and the outcome. And this is from John chapter 12, 1-2.
Then Yeshua 6 days before the Passover came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served. But Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the odor of the ointment.
Applying a different take on the feet of Yeshua Jesus being washed, it can be looked upon as the preparation for his sorrowful and bitter journey 6 days later. His feet were not washed with water, but oil that was expensive, and wiped dry with the hair of the one who served him. This is a journey unlike any other, not to execute judgment, but to be judged for the sins of his people. So that's just a little contrast with the preparation before his death, with his feet being washed with oil rather than with the expected water.
That's a neat take to say, but to be judged for the sins of his people. He's getting the consequence.
Yes, he's facing the consequence. So he's about to walk on that journey. So when traveling the dusty roads of the region, people making the journey on foot would end up with dirty feet, hence the need to wash your feet. Unfortunately, it became more than what it initially was, and its true intent was highlighted by the Anointed One, the Prophet. And this excerpt was taken from a literary piece done in 1908 on the religious and hospitable rite of feet washing, the original Oriental custom. Yeah.
One of the least known religious customs of the present day is that of feet washing. In commemoration of the washing of the disciples' feet by Christ on the occasion of the Last Supper, it's quite a common custom in the backwoods parts of the South, among the descendants of the early German immigrants in the Middle West and in the Catholic Church. It was formerly a general practice in the Christian Church. Now it is confined to the most primitive of Protestant sects and to ceremonial occasions among the Catholics. We must go far back of the time of Christ to find the origin of the ceremonial feet washing. It was, we find, an old Oriental custom, common among all peoples of the arid countries of Asia and Africa. Numerous references are found in the sacred books, especially in the Bible. Outside of the Orient, it was practiced by the early Greeks, and Homer described it. In the beginning, it was simply an ablution, that is, a sanitary and cleanly practice. But after the manner of the Orient, most health laws became religious laws, and thus the practice of feet washing acquired a religious significance. In the hot climate of the East, frequent baths were not only a luxury, but a necessity, especially to the traveler after the dusty journey of the day. Hence water, the supply of which was often limited, was of vast importance, and the sanitary ablution was exalted into the religious ceremony of purification. Consequently, we find that ablution as a symbol of purification is frequently mentioned throughout the Bible.
So this is just an old excerpt that I found on an academic forum that I typically visit for other reasons, and I just thought it was nice to show back in that period, 1908, people understood what the whole purpose of feet washing was about and how it sort of morphed into something else over time. So now we're in Genesis chapter 18, verse 6 to 8.
And Abraham hasted to the tent of Sarah and said to her, Hasten and knead 3 measures of fine flour and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the kine and took a young calf, tender and good, and gave it to his servant, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed. And he set them before them, and they did eat, and he stood by them under the tree.
Post haste. So this is the prep for visitors. Post haste. Abraham begins to organize the meal after the 3 men agreed to sit and enjoy the shade of the tree or trees with him. Sarah did the indoor prep and measured out 3 measures of fine meal or flour, assuming that a measure is the portion for each guest outside of the vision. No food is going to waste in Sarah's tent. In the meantime, Abraham and one of his servants, maybe Ishmael, because if you read the MT, it gives you that impression it maybe is Ishmael, did the outdoor prep with the calf, which is called veal.
An entire serving of veal for 3 men and 3 measures of meal flour. That's a big meal for a small crew. Additionally, butter and milk is provided with the meal, which leads to another religious issue as per kosher laws.
So here we have an excerpt about the prohibition of combining meat and milk. And some people here would be familiar with this situation.
Sandwich. What's that? Is that the guy's name?
Where?
It says that? It says 2-4. You're not far enough.
Oh, no. Oh, sandwich. Okay, this is about the sandwich. The Torah says, You may not cook, which is the key word, a young animal in the milk of its mother. And that's from Exodus 23:19. From this it is derived that milk and meat products may not be mixed together. So this is the person who is talking about this here, showing where the information come from and how it developed into something else. Not only may they not cook together, but they may not be served together. Now, we just read what the last passage said. Everything was served together at the same time. But again, we are dealing with kosher laws here.
This is rabbinic
This is
stuff. Let's
this
just
is
clarify.
rabbinic.
This is rabbinic Judaism.
Right.
This
Rabbinic.
is not biblical.
This is not biblical, and I'm showing that contrast with what happened with Abraham's guest versus what they have made this into. at the same time, and surely not eaten at the same time. This rule is scrupulously upheld in observant Jewish households, even in the handling of utensils, which we'll be talking about as well, which are carefully separated into flicings, if I pronounce that correctly. Meat and milking, dairy, and separately labeled. By strict observance of these laws, they become an everyday habit. After meat meals, one must wait 1, 3, or 6 hours, depending on one's custom, before eating dairy. After dairy consumption, no interval is required before meat may be eaten. And this is taken from koshercertification.org, where just to show that whole situation with meat and milk being consumed together. Whereas you see in Exodus, it says, may not cook, which is a whole different situation. And we'll get into that.
In actuality, the command says cook, not consume meat and milk at the same time. Here is additional insights into this matter. Cooking a young goat in its mother's milk. Daniel Edgecombe posted on 2018, May 24th.
So this is recent. I wouldn't say he doesn't agree. A lot of people believe what he's going to talk about is what the prohibition is, but he believes it could be something else as well. So he's just highlighting everything.
I was listening to a Bible podcast recently and heard a discussion around a peculiar law repeated 3 times in the Torah. The specific law is found in Exodus 23, 19, 34, 26, and Deuteronomy 14, 21. In each it simply reads, you must not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. The commandment is a good demonstration of the maxim that the Bible was written for us, not to us. In this case of this particular law, no one truly knows what it means. What once was clear to the original audience is now lost. The podcast stated the meaning had now been determined due to the comparison of Canaanite practices of kids, meaning baby goats boiled in their mother's milk, being a sacrifice to their gods. Awesome, I see. One of the roles of archaeology being to supply cultural, epigraphic, and artifactual materials that provide the background for accurately interpreting the Bible. This sounded like an excellent opportunity to illustrate the point, so I decided to do some digging and flesh out the passage. This then served to underscore a few points. Firstly, sources needed to be checked and current scholarship consulted. The podcast claim was based on an outdated 50-year-old maybe. Secondly, there are times when we do not have access to the information necessary to actually know the why of a passage.
And I know a couple other people who did discussions on this, which was quite recent, but it's nice to hear his take. So continuing on, what might the law mean?
In traditional Jewish interpretation, the law is taken into the determination of what food combinations are kosher. This is Jewish interpretation, Judaism. This is not biblical. The Mishnah is the first major written collection of the Jewish oral traditions known as the Oral Torah. That is not the regular Torah. It is also the first major work of rabbinic literature. And it says...
Okay, so before I'll explain what the Oral Torah is. Now, according to this tradition, they say when Moses went up to Mount Sinai, he was given 2 Torahs. One that was orated to him orally and the other one written. When he came down from the mountain, he told the 70 elders that was at the base with him, the oral Torah, and the other Torah was for the people. And each successive leader translated the oral Torah to the next generation until it was finally compiled into what is known as the Mishnah. That's the short, quick version.
And that's not necessarily true.
No, that's not true. That
is far from being true.
Far from being true.
Right. Okay. Every kind of flesh of cattle, wild beast, and fowl is it prohibited to cook in milk except for the flesh of fish and locusts. It's prohibited to serve it up on the table with cheese.
Right, and this is from the Mishnah.
For this reason, kosher kitchens will serve and even handle dairy products and meat separately. This might tell us the what, but really doesn't address the why of the commandment. There really are no clues textually as to the meaning of the expression. Prop notes that there are some additions to the text. For example, the Samaritan Pentateuch adds, for anyone doing this is like a sacrificer of contempt, and it is a provocation to Jacob's deity. He goes on to note, a host of Septuagint and Masoretic feature a strikingly similar addition to Deuteronomy 14:21. Don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. For anyone doing this, it is as if he sacrifices rats. For for it is a sin or provocation.
And this is from that Mishnah
Yeah.
to Jacob's God.
Right. But these witnesses shed no light on the injunction. Despite the additional material, we are none the wiser as to why this law was given and thrice repeated.
And again, as I said, the commonly held view with this is about that
It's cruel.
rite that the Canaanites did. That ritual, it's a fertility ritual.
Yeah.
I was trying to find this information, but there is an African tribe that still does this. Especially on special occasions, they will get the goat, the kid, and boil it in its mother's milk.
But let's not go
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But
okay?
I'm just saying,
The first thing that comes to mind, I think this is getting, I mean, it's nice to see some of this stuff, but it's, the simple answer, I think, is just that it's cruel. You know? It's the young goat and you don't put it in its mother's milk. It's just not, you keep that separate.
and it's to show where the deviation took place.
Right, and
With
because
the
that was,
the situation, the men actually had a meal with cheese and meat at the same time, but because of religious doctrine, it has taken on something different than what you read in the scriptures. So we are on to Genesis 18, 9 and 10.
and he said to him, "Where is Sarah your wife?" And he answered and said, "Behold, in the tent." And he said, "I will return and come to you according to this period seasonably, and Sarah your wife will have a son." And Sarah heard at the door of the tent being behind him.
Okay, so here we see it just says him. It doesn't distinguish who is who in this passage here. What about Sarah? So the main speaker of the group of men brings up Sarah, asking Abraham about her whereabouts, as if he was not aware of it. After all, who prepared the 3 measures of meal or flour for them? The main speaker made a segue to Sarah, and discusses the promises of a son made to Abraham in previous chapters of our study. The speaker is making it clear to Abraham that the promise of a son through Sarah is now on the agenda. Not being left out of the council meeting, Sarah is within earshot, absorbing all that is being said by the main speaker. She may have been stationed at the tent door, just after the meal prep is completed. After all, it was the heat of the day, and she would also be taking shelter with her husband. So, 11 and 12 now.
And Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in days, and the custom of women ceased with Sarah. And Sarah laughed in herself, saying, "The thing has not as yet happened to me, even until now, and my Lord is old."
And here we see the word Lord is used again, and this time it's all lowercase, and it's the same Adonai that is being supplied. So depending on the context, you'll know whether it's big L-O-R-D or little L-O-R-D. So it all depends on the context. The impossible.
Still listening in on the discussion pertaining to her, Sarah is lamenting within herself about expectations of ever being a mother and the pleasures attributed to that status within the then society. With both Abraham and Sarah being advanced in age for that time, can this child issue from them both? With every successive generation, life expectancy diminishes, as we have come to see with each mentioned birth or death mentioned of the patriarchal line. The potential for a woman to continue giving birth also diminishes, and Sarah is well aware of it, hence her attitude at that moment. Also notice she called Abraham Lord. Depending on context, the word can be all caps, or capital L-O-R-D, or just all lowercase Lord. This can be a bit confusing and misleading, hence the importance of applying context to everything.
13 to 15, chapter 18.
And Yahweh said to Abraham, "Why is it that Sarah has laughed in herself, saying, 'Shall I then indeed bear? But I am grown old. Shall anything be impossible with Yahweh? At this time I will return to you seasonably, and Sarah shall have a son.' But Sarah denied, saying, 'I did not laugh,' for she was afraid. And he said to her, 'No, but you did laugh.'"
Now, notice from the previous chapter to this chapter, it says he, and now it's directly saying the Lord. So then the question you need to ask yourself, is it 3 men or is it 4 entities that are in this circumstance with Abraham? Because we see here the narrative switch and they use the proper name of the Most High rather than saying he, as in the previous verse that we just read. So we have to decide what is taking place here in terms of how many people are actually participating in this sit-down that is currently occurring.
Yahweh speaks. The main character is now Yahweh, and his attention turns towards Sarah as her attitude can be characterized as being indifferent. Sarah, as for many of us, is in disbelief after how many years have elapsed and still waiting for promises to be fulfilled. Sarah and Abraham obstructed the plan with their actions, which produced Ishmael, the son of Abraham's concubine Hagar. With his son now being older and capable of fending for himself, Yahweh Elohim saw it fit to establish the promise of a son with Abraham through his wife Sarah. Thinking as any mortal man would, Sarah is in doubt about the situation and reflecting on the past. Hence Yahweh asking, is anything too hard for the Lord? Shall anything be impossible with Yahweh? Nothing is impossible for our Elohim. When Sarah is challenged on the matter, her indifference changes to fear as she is confronted by either Yahweh or the lead speaker of the three men.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. That's a Trinidadian joke. About her accents, a guarantee is given that she is going to have a child at the specific season on a return visit.
So in essence, we have to keep past situations at the forefront as well, because I am sure that situation is still having a heavy burden on all the parties in Abraham's tent. And she would now be at a stage where, does it really matter to me anymore? You know, whatever it be, it be. So that's what I'm trying to convey here in this section. Chapter 6, verse 16.
And the men, having risen up from thence, looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham went with them, attending them on their journey.
Now, as you can see in the Masoretic, Gomorrah is left out, but in the Septuagint it is mentioned because the two are more or less interconnected to each other. On to other business. The council meeting and meal is complete, and the men point their interest towards the city of the plains. Things are heating up in that region, which becomes apparent in the next study. The Septuagint includes Gomorrah as it is left out in the Masoretic. Abraham, being the gracious host, leads them on the next stage of the journey. And this is a map of the area in which all this activity takes place here. So more or less this is the circuit of the earth where all of the prophetic circumstances are unfolding. End of the study, in the heat of the day. All I can see.
And what I will say is, I just think that whole encounter thing is mind-blowing. I don't know if I'm convinced on either opinions. I've read a lot of different scholarship on all that whole section, but I'm not sure. I just don't know. But it's something to ponder. I guess that's just what I wanted to say.
Any questions, comments? Well, the one thing for me while doing that study was the situation with Sarah. Because when you put the past situation with Hagar into the mix, I think you could kind of understand why Sarah was acting the way that she did. You know, yes, a promise is made, but how many years have elapsed between that situation and now, and nothing has materialized? And how do you reconcile that, given you were called out from one location, things may have been looking prosperous in that location, and now you're here in this sort of wilderness, living from day to day, even though you see certain things manifesting itself in your tent. So it was just interesting to me to, you know, kind of get that different perspective with Sarah and why she acted in that manner in regards to being told that, yes, you're going to have that kid, even though these are the challenges in your life at this moment. And then, again, Ishmael's age, he could fend for himself. So now the Mosiah is saying, time to make that separation, time to establish this promise and keep the momentum moving forward.
Are we done? Do you want to close in prayer?
Well, if we have no more comments, Father, we thank you for another day and for your favor as we all made it here safely. and under the hospitality of the head of this home. As we're about to make our way out, I ask that your presence be with each one of us to get us home safely, to talk to us, and to also help us to be discerning of everything that we come across, and not just to accept what is given to us because we may have trusted the source. I thank you for everyone here, Father. Many of us are dealing with challenges that is beyond comprehension, and I just ask that you guide us accordingly, each one of us, through those challenges, and help us to trust in you and to walk in faithfulness and righteousness before you, and to let your will be done as you take us home safely in your name, through Yeshua. Amen.